upon the chapter education and disparities. So disparities with respect to education, illiteracy, all those given problems and the nature of question that we receive. So any question associated with the given chapter that has been taught related to disparities in education, any person having any kind of query, any kind of doubt, all good with respect to education. I believe all of you are realizing that there's a lot of reading involved, a lot of reading, a lot of the reflection is involved. And all those students who are doing EPW by themselves, I'll always encourage, if you're unable to read the entire article, but you realize that this is related to my GS or this is related to my optional, just read, at least read the introduction and the conclusion. That's it. For civil services aspirant, you don't need exhaustive research work. You just don't need that. You just need to have a sense of update at what's going on, what's there in news, and what should be consolidated in my thought process further. So, what I can truly encourage all of you to do is just go through like the EPW with respect to the introduction and the conclusion at least. All right. So this time मुझे लगता है मुझे खुद अपनी खोपड़ी लगानी पड़ेगी with respect to that this week's article. Certain things. Okay, let's see what gets out of it. So domestic violence. Today we are going to start with that. Under the component of domestic violence, when we reflect upon the key reflections pertaining to it, I have given you certain insights. So there's this Rashida Manju. She is a noted thinker from South Africa. So she published a specific report related to violence against women, and this was also further endorsed by United Nations. So she identified like 6 reasons responsible for violence against women. Before we delve into this, before we engage with this chapter, I want all of you to understand the word violence. What is your understanding of violence, people? What do you have an insight related to violence? How do you perceive violence? You all can unmute yourself. You want to be visible, you can showcase yourself. You can just undo your cameras. You can be visible and you can just talk, because these are the topics where I really want to see the class discussing. It shouldn't be a one-way communication. So anyone who'd like to write or speak or discuss over the issue of violence, what do you perceive by the word violence? Because what is going to unfold in another couple of minutes will not be only something which is very technical or academic. I want everyone to connect with the topic to the very heart of it. So, harmful behavior to society can be violence, okay? Harming and suppressing others, all right? Yes. So Antara and Kashish, they come up with their insights. Yes, other people. What do you understand by violence? Yes.
Ma'am, Ria here.
Yes.
Ma'am, violence, according to me, can be physical, but it can also be not allowing a person to act according to what they want to or according to how they think. It can also be restriction towards their thought and action, which I think we can call intellectual violence, of restricting someone's thought and trying to control the way others think. That can also be violence because it puts a barrier about how they want to express themselves and how they
Mm-hmm.
want to grow as a person. So
Mm-hmm.
curbing individualism is also violence, is what I feel.
Okay. So coercion in any form can also be violence. Okay. Fine. Agreed. Because coercion can manifest itself in several ways. So that's there. Agreed. And then Astha is saying that when a person is forces himself or herself on others, physically or mentally, that's violence. Keep thinking. In how many ways have you experienced violence happening in and around you, or maybe towards you? So, what do you understand by the very facet of violence? How did you see violence manifest itself? Was it only physical? Was it only psychological? Was violence to do with the way people only spoke to you, behaved in front of you? What is it that truly manifested around you? See, violence, the word itself is coming from the word like force. When we look into the root word of violence, violenta. So that's how it comes. And it is associated with exercising force, any form of force, anything which is against the will of an individual. That's what we can consider. And when we are reflecting upon this given component related to violence, any kind of constraint, any kind of force, that is something which manifests into violence. Yes, suppressing one's identity. So when we talk about this word violence, just a couple of days back, we on 19th, we had International Men's Day. And let us respect the very fact that today violence is not always engendered. Every community is exposed to violence of its own kind. It is violence when we coerce men to necessarily take care of the household responsibilities and the duties, and be the provider of the family, and not see the limitations that that human being might be suffering from. Like, calling upon a man, belittling the man if the person is not able to be the provider, or for that matter, calling upon a man if the person is not exercising violence in the face of someone um, misbehaving with them. Like, let's say the wife is abusive, she is physically violent, and the man is trying to be as patient, as cool, as relaxed as possible. So people start calling that man not virile enough, not macho enough, not masculine enough. And that's also a pattern of violence. So when we are talking about violence, sometimes you can see parental violence get exercised. Yes, overburdening with expectations can also be a violent exercise, whereby a person is like, emotionally and intellectually bleeding. When I speak of parental violence, there have been societies, there have been people where, like, the parents have not evolved biologically and emotionally to become parents. And you can see that they can be really abusive, they can really be violent. Like, for example, there was like once I was traveling way back, it was 2018 or so, and I was traveling by train. So it so happened that there was this young girl. I somehow just remembered because it opened so many facets when I just noticed her, and I kept noticing her very silently. This little girl, she was an adolescent mother. It was very much visible that she herself is 16 or so, wearing a satin sari, which was not very comfortable in sweltering heat of Delhi. It was June or so. And the sari, you can understand, if it's not cotton, it can be really itchy for your body, and she was wearing that, and she was supposed to cover her head, cover her face, and then there was a little baby in her arms, and then her mother-in-law was there, and it caught up my attention because I saw a lot of paramilitary soldiers, like they were also young boys, barely 20 or so, and they were like all grouped up. They must be traveling somewhere, so they all were like on the platform, something around 18, 20 odd boys. And and that's why I just, because it was huge numbers, so I just noticed them. And then I saw that they were kind of catcalling, or they were just like, leering upon this woman. And that's how I like paid attention to this woman. And then this woman, she was like constantly trying to cover herself up, like just covering something of her sari, her face, and her mother-in-law constantly blaming her for attracting attention. And then the child was also like, getting restless because it was too hot. And then the mother's sari also must not be like feeling comfortable to the child because, I don't know, satin is also soft. It must be something like a mixed polyester or something. I don't know. Some fabric which was not very comfortable to even to look at. And the woman trying to cover herself, hold the baby, and the baby felt really hot and it started crying. And she's like, oh, just like calm down, calm down. And the mother-in-law, she said, I'm just going to fetch water. The moment she went to just get water, oh my God, the baby got, I don't know, 5 slaps or 10 slaps. I just don't know. She was so angry with the entire situation, this young girl, angry with all the leering, the catcalling, the mother-in-law, the clothes, maybe too much. She was too overwhelmed. So the child, I mean, the child was barely a couple of months. It was not even like the child which can sit or like, stand. So you can understand it must be just 3 or 4 months. And she slapped the child at least 5, 6 times, like proper slaps. And I was like so taken aback by seeing the child being beaten up. And the child like just held its breath for a couple of seconds, and then the way it started wailing, and then the mother-in-law and all the ruckus and chaos. But I was just thinking that what's the mistake of the child? And why did the child get a beating? And that too such a violent beating from the mother. So it was the society's frustration which just poured on the child, the most vulnerable one. That's how it works. Violence. It pours from the one who can be in a relatively empowered position to the one who's in a relatively vulnerable position. Like a boss exercising verbal abuse or any other form of coercion on the junior if the boss has been scolded by the super boss. Parents being frustrated with the society, getting back home or getting back from some family occasion, this and that, mentally really turbulent, but unable to hold their emotions and unable to process it, that the child in front of me is not responsible for the situation. So I have to be calm, complacent, and I have to never lose my manners. Because though the individual is younger to me, but is a personality. So even if I don't approve of something, I can just politely say that, listen, today the day was not really pleasant, and I honestly request you that please don't engage in unnecessary conversation, or don't try to trouble me with certain repeated requests. I can consider this maybe after a couple of hours or maybe tomorrow, if that is fine with you. So, like, this basic democratic level of handling the situation, but just informing the child. Trust me, even a young child who is barely 7 or 8 years old also listens to this and understands. That's why children, before the parent comes, like for example, the father comes back home, will have a tendency to talk that, let's see how is Papa's mood. If his mood is okay, then we'll ask for this. We'll ask for the picnic. So children can be very perceptive of how you are feeling. So you can always go gentle. And when you address the situation in front of the child, that see, this has happened, I'm really not feeling to my best of my mood, and let us, like, not engage in this or that. Not only it establishes more trust between parent and child, you're also able to be more aware of what you are undergoing. So you're able to handle that situation in a more composed manner, because you have spoken it, you have realized it. And when it is a realized, processed emotion, the sense of awareness also douses the scope of violence. So sometimes, rather than like letting the thing brew in the background, it is important to understand what's there and to face it. There's one more thing when we speak of this given pattern of violence across like across South Asia. It is a pattern of exercising violence. I must have shared this with all of you, the very pattern of violence, whereby one of my friends, she's married in Kerala, and she sent a like picture some time back related to the toy shop. And it was a children's stationery come toy shop. So stationery come toy shop, you can understand the purpose. And then there were a bundle of sticks that were kept in the corner of the shop. And then she's like, can you see this stick? I was like, yeah, I can. And she's like, just guess for what? I was like, maybe some science project or something. She's like, no, no, no. This is for beating the children. You get 10 rupee per stick. I'm like, oh my God. That's like, you are validating like child beating by selling such sticks. She's like, yeah. So why did I say so? Because you should not feel that, oh, in North India, only people are violent. When it comes to reprimanding the child, and when it comes to putting the child in its place, yes, violence becomes one of the tools or keys. And sometimes people can be so abusive that a child ends up like breaking a leg, or sometimes getting severely harmed, constantly abusing the child by belittling the child, like, speaking things which the child is neither responsible for nor should be hearing. um, so when we talk about this violence that gets exercised to a child, the child starts noticing who all are victim to some or the other pattern of violence. So the child starts understanding the relationship of like subjugation and coercion in and around the environment. Who's the boss? In any and every situation, in the school, in the home, in the neighborhood, in between relatives. So the child starts understanding that this coercion can manifest itself in several ways in and around us. It's not something which my parent is exercising only towards me. It can be towards my parent, it can be between parents, it can be in and around in several ways. So the child starts realizing the given possibilities in that specific manner. So Norman Bell told this functional feature of violence when, parents use kids as scapegoats to vent out their attention. All right, yes. So when I want to actually pull you down to the core, that how you got exposed to violence as a child for the first time. Because first, when violence manifests, you start noticing it, how it is spreading in your environment, in how many forms. Then you can get into the component of gender. Because when you start noticing how violence spreads in and around you, and as a child with like teeny tiny sparkly eyes, when you were witnessing the world, when you are noticing the world, in how many ways violence started coming in front of you. Maybe someone in the family or outside exercising caste based discrimination, someone exercising gender based discrimination, someone talking about the pattern of discrimination which starts unfolding in the form of religious discrimination. And the moment you start discriminating, considering the other one lesser than you, and the moment you start belittling, that's the first act, the first step which starts leading towards violence. Tomorrow, you can use verbal abuse, you can use physical abuse. So, when we talk about this word violence, it has happened, it has occurred in and around us for centuries. The moment you can go into the history of primitive man, the moment the primitive man wanted to assert its presence, its reality, its existence, it realized that it can exist, it can survive only when a bit of violence is exercised. In the absence of violence, survival is tough. So, raw in nature, the survivability gets determined on the basis of, yes, the component of fittest, who is the fittest, and also who can dominate over the other. So, this very component of domination rather than coexistence, when perceived by human beings, they started a cyclical basis of controlling and dominating over others, like domesticating animals, like controlling plants, like controlling the, we can say, the area, like how the area needs to be utilized, harnessing nature. So when we talk about this word violence, it was somewhere violence generates insecurity, fear. And insecurity and fear can have multifaceted responses. And all this that I'm discussing will build a certain specific thought process and a base for emotional intelligence as well. So when we see people angry, what is anger? Anger is a sudden rush of fear that you experience, a sudden rush of uncertainty that you experience. Just think about it. The person who's angry, it is sudden surge up, and that sudden surge up is due to what? Anger is happening due to sadness, hopelessness, though what the person aspired for did not get fulfilled, and it was realized suddenly, and because it was a sudden experience, so the sudden response. So that's how. Because when we talk about violence, root cause, anger, root cause, so that's how you process it. So emotional intelligence, you have in GS paper 4. So violence is the manifestation. And if you get into back of it, anger. And what is anger? Unprocessed sudden sadness. Because a rage or anger, whatever you call it, a rage or anger is a manifestation. In the background, what is there? Look into it. So you'll be finding that there is a sudden realization of deep sadness, failure, which is converting into rage, right? Now, When we reflect upon this sudden emotion of deep sadness, hopelessness, failure, which manifests itself into anger or rage, and anger or rage which leads into violence, its roots may not be there in the immediate situation. Its roots can be, like we can say, since some incident that happened in the childhood. That's why a lot of psychologists or psychoanalysts, they inquire about a person's childhood. How was your childhood? Who are the people around you? How did they behave? What were the possibilities that came like around you, and how people like responded? So all that. So there's a constant possibility of inquiring into the fact that how everything is unfolding or manifesting around the individual. So um, there are childhood issues, traumas, which people carry as baggages. And a similar situation, and the person can really get triggered. So that's something which we can consider when it comes to the given component of getting enraged and how it works. Childhood issues also. In protest, we read that people who are voiceless and politically frustrated engage in violent protests. Yes, that's what. There's a lot of suppressed anger for quite some time, and that's why if it is not trained how to regulate it, it can manifest itself into violence. When Gandhi was talking about non-violent protest, he was not talking about only the external protest. He said that do not hate the British, hate the act. Do not hate the sinner, hate the sin. The idea which is also there as a core idea in Christianity. So when we reflect upon how things unfold and manifest on ground, how we experience what's happening in and around us, we start realizing that what is happening around us, in what forms it is happening, what kind of responses are needed, what kind of interventions are needed. We need to understand that. So, when we are talking about this given possibility of violence against women, we need to understand that a lot of it, which is like happening around us, also has to do with um, the processing of the reality in our background, which also shapes what we experience in general. So, when we are discussing about this given possibility pertaining to violence against women, we need to reflect upon the causes. And here there are six causes which are hyphenated by Rashida Manju, endorsed by United Nations. So first we can see historical inequality. So we all can see that because of patriarchy, well, yes, women were physically weak, not always and not all women, but we can say in general, when we talk about the muscle mass index, we can see that women have it little lesser than men, and that impacts the way physical work can probably conducted or regulated and all that stuff. So when we reflect upon how things manifest in and around us, we can see that women, when they like have been into situations whereby in the evolution of human history, physical work was needed, physical coercion was needed. It was the physical strength and the might which must have led one tribe win over the other, one community win over the other, like take control over huge beastly animals. So when physical strength was glorified, in that situation, women across the world, majority of the civilizations, there are certain civilizations where women have not been treated as physically weak. Okay, like for example, the Eta tribe of Philippines. So it is the women who go for hunting because they are more lithe, more agile. So they go for hunting, whether small or big, any animal. And it is the men who stay back and take care of the children, the household. So let us not have a generalized perception because that also leads to prejudiced mindset. If you remember, we were discussing about Kwaku tribe, the Shambuli, right? If you all can remember that when we were talking about Margaret Mead. Yes, exactly. Papua New Guinea tribes. So there also we could see that this insight which I gave you in the chapter of patriarchy, we cannot engender physical strength and violence. We cannot engender it. It's all about how the civilization has evolved, how the community has grown, how the men and women have grown. That also has to deal with the way people can become violent. In certain communities, men are the noble ones, the silent ones. They are the ones who save their words for precious situations. And it's the women who get into the day to day life quarrel and strain and, fighting for the situation and making things happen. And there are societies whereby it's vice versa. Women are supposed to be noble, quiet. They're supposed to be like measuring their words carefully, whereas men are the ones who get into the daily quarrels. So when we are reflecting upon this given situation, yes, Arapesh, Mundugumor, Shambuli, I discussed all that. So we can see that unfold in and around us in this specific manner. So when we are talking about violence against women, we have to reflect upon what is unfolding around us, how and why is it unfolding around us in that specific manner. So, with respect to historical inequality, when we talk about it, we can see that the political, the economic, and social processes which have endorsed and sustained patriarchy have also justified these processes of exploitation and discrimination towards women, as it is written. Now, you can really understand the root of these words, the political, economic, and social processes that has unfolded. So you can recall Karl Marx, you can recall from primitive communism to ancient, and in that, how man tried to control the resources. Those controlling of resources will involve economic process, political process, social process. And in the process, patriarchy must have emerged. In the process of controlling other human beings' body and labor, controlling a woman's body, controlling her, we can say, fertility, all that must have led to emergence of patriarchy and sustenance of it. And that's how in situations when a person would have been protesting or would have been demanding one's rights, that would have come as a threat to patriarchy, a threat to the prevailing order, a threat to humanity, in their own words. And in that situation, they would have endorsed the possibility of exercising violence towards such women. So, any human being, man or woman, who was protesting the existing order, which facilitated a specific social existence, like, for example, we can think of Galileo Galilei, we can think of Copernicus. So, they were questioning the existing order, a threat to the society. Women who are liberated, they are seeking their own freedom, their own peace, threat to the society. So, declared as witches or something like that, and killing them. So, there can be multiple manifestations by which we can see that to maintain the order, anyone questioning or challenging it would have been seen as a threat to the society and would have been suppressed accordingly, right? So here we can understand this term historical inequality. Then we all can reflect. So please do remember when we are talking about this, the name of the thinker, that is Rashida Manjoo. Remember that she has been endorsed by UN. Then remember the keywords: historical inequality, control on women's sexuality. So you initially control her womb or her sexual behavior because you want the certainty of the paternity of the child. But in the process of it, it's not just sexual control. It will also start controlling her choices, her like preferences, her attitudes, her behavior. Is a woman, if she is too liberated, why will she try to do all the drudgery and work at home? Why will she be comfortable taking care of all the unpaid care work for which sometimes she is not even recognized that, okay, she has been contributing this greatly with respect to the maintenance of the household activity. So why will she feel motivated to do the same? That's the question. So when we are speaking of this given dimension associated with controlling women's sexuality, it's not just the sexuality. It will be related to her other behavior as well. Suppose if she is financially well off and she can take care of herself and she is physically fit and she can protect herself. So then, if you try to push her in a direction whereby she is supposed to be in a subservient position, she'll be like, why am I in this position? Why am I not getting a competent level of existence and exercise? So that's something which you need to understand when we are discussing about this given turf. Okay. And I hope all of you can connect with it. Furthermore, we can see the given dimension of cultural ideology. Okay, so under the component of cultural ideology, we all can connect it with the culturally assigned goals, the religion, the tradition, the specific kind of punishment that can be assigned to such women. So, with respect to all these given possibilities, with respect to all these given ideas, we can connect that there can be violence that can come in the form of religious practices also. The do's and don'ts that they need to observe, the do's and don'ts that they need to exercise. So, that can also be a form of violence that can unfold towards women when we are talking about the pattern of violence. I'm not talking about religious violence only in the form of sati or exploitation of the widows, because all this is also due to the specific religious practices which must have, or traditional practices which must have cropped up over the time period. Other than that, also we can see that there can be certain aspects which unfolded the parda system in a way. So a lot of practices which unfolded with the passage of time as a matter of custom, later ripening into a tradition. So we all can see that the very manifestation of violence in the form of maintenance of a specific cultural ideology, a belief, a behavior is something which is put to action when we talk about this given dimension. Like there was a movie from Malayali movie which spoke about the issue related to the temple, the controversy of uh, entry of the women to the temple, and in that you all are aware that in the controversy emerged in Kerala. So there was a movie which was covering that given issue, that how women are subjected to day-to-day life, we can say misbehavior, discrimination. So it was showing everything like how she is working on all household chores, and still like her work is not regarded. Oh, what she has to do? She's just at home and she's relaxing or chilling, though she is the one who's getting up early. And there's this young girl who just gets married after college. She wants to get into her career, but the husband is like, I really love you and I really want to pamper you and keep you in such a well-to-do manner. So don't stress yourself with work. Whatever you need, I'll provide. You just take care of me and my parents and this and that. So the woman, she smilingly submits to it. And then the movie further, and definitely it has a Marxist tinge in the movie, but doing away with the ideological component, the portrayal that was that she is the one who's getting up first in the house, doing all household chores, and after a couple of days, when the husband is introducing her to like certain friends and their family, he says, "Oh, she is the queen of the house. She has nothing to do. She's just like comfortably relaxing and yes, taking care of us, cooking, cleaning." Whereas, like her father was very particular that the idli should not be like. The batter should not be prepared by mixer grinder. It should be prepared like over the traditional process of like just grinding it over the stone. So every morning she had to make two types of idlis, one which is prepared quickly, second one which is grounded. And then he was very particular about the way the sambar should be like presented, the heat and this and that. So, and then the the different types of practices. Then when she is undergoing periods, how she is kept in a room, completely isolated, people not even touching her or pushing the plate in her direction in her room so that she picks it and eats it. So all those practices which are generally in the society has been like was portrayed. And then it was hyphenated that how violence can manifest itself in so many ways. Then there are times when she's not physically feeling all kicked and up for like cohabiting with her husband. And then he's like, come on, yeah, I'm like, really, I need it. And then she's submitting unwillingly and she's not enjoying it. So all those given moments, bit by bit, like were trying to portray the society and life from a woman's perspective in that Malayali movie. And after that, they also portrayed the given possibility that men one day they decide that, oh, we'll throw a party and there's a man who took the initiative, I shall cook. So everyone is like, she says, no, 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 no problem, I'll cook. She's like, no, no, I can prepare the best mutton. And then she is into like grinding all the masalas and preparing the background and chopping everything and doing all that and getting the utensils out, and he is just like frying, doing all that. And then she is preparing the rice, the salad, this and that, whatever other things. And then the food is brought to table and the entire kitchen is in mess. And then after that, when everyone has eaten and the dishes have been kept, and then she starts cleaning the kitchen. And then the husband and her and the husband's friend, they all comment that, oh my god, what were you doing when all the cooking also was done by us today? You guys are obsessed with work, obsessed with work. So you can just connect with all these given patterns, whereby you can see the like the pattern of discrimination, which is also a pattern of violence, a psychological violence, a mental violence unfold. And later they show the Sabrimala incident, that this has happened, the temple issue has happened and all that. So, and how the woman, she steps out of the household and she demands equal respect and all that. So whatever. Why I narrated a part of that movie, so that you can visualize that how on day-to-day basis a lot of activities which a woman is performing is culturally designed. And in that cultural design there is discrimination, there is coercion, there is choicelessness sometimes, and that's also a manifestation of violence in a certain degree. I started the note on an average with how violence can manifest itself in several ways in several individuals' lives, so that you don't think that, oh, it's like in general associated with women only. No, I mean, children, men, everyone can be subjected to different forms of violence. But because the chapter is violence against women, and the intensity, the degree, the number related to women getting subjected to violence is too high, that's how we all can see that violence manifests itself in so many ways, that we all can see that it can have a definite level of impact unfold like in society, which can be, we can say, kind of damaging for individuals who are letting it happen or who are subjected to it. Again, the component of doctrine of privacy. Yesterday only I was reading this specific article. So 2 weeks back, there was an issue related to the component of privacy. So there was a woman who, and the case is decided by the Supreme Court under Article 21 of our fundamental rights. So the woman, now that's something different than what is written here, what I'm going to discuss, the case under this doctrine of privacy. So it so happened that the woman, her husband doubted that she is cheating upon him. And without her consent, he got her call records. So when this thing reached the court first and foremost said that if any of the partners have to engage in any such thing, the person has to take the consent of the other person, that is the partner. Because marriage, the foundation of marriage is on trust. The foundation of marriage is on believing each other and reliability towards each other. So if any such activity is taken up, any such we can say action is performed on ground, it is against the basic ethos, it is against the basic practices of marriage, and it violates the given possibility related to the fundamental rights of the individual, that is right to privacy. Until and unless the state is threatened, The sovereign rule is undergoing the threat, whereby the police, or we can say the government, takes such an action. In civil matters, we cannot breach upon the privacy of an individual. If you want to do so, take the other person's consent and then go ahead for any such act. So this was a very landmark judgment related to the component of privacy, whereby the husband did not even seek the permission of the wife, and then he got her call records out. So the Indian Evidence Act was also in the process amended by the Supreme Court, not just hyphenating the fundamental rights. So the privacy issue, which was just in news, I was reminded of it and I just connected with this given term. So when we are talking about this, we can see that there are so many societies where we can see that it is considered that you should not be talking about violence if it's happening. If your father slapped you, your husband slapped you, or parents-in-law slapped you, or something like that, you should not be talking about it because it is against the family's honor. So protecting the issues and incidents related to violence in the name of privacy. And that is also something which hinders when anyone is coming to save you or is trying to free you from violence. So it hinders that process. Suppose a woman is being beaten and the person, the neighbors reach out that, well, that's a very incorrect thing and it's illegal. You cannot get into wife beating. This is against Domestic Violence Act and this and that. Fair chance the woman will like, Bhai Sahab or Benji, please go away because this is an issue of our household. So please don't interfere in our household. This is our private matter. Then there's a fair chance the person may, out of irritation, that here I came to save her and she is like preaching us about tradition and culture. So fair chance that the person may just respond or retort back that, well, then keep it private. Don't let it be so loud that it reaches our homes and our ears. So this, what the person responded was out of frustration, restlessness, anger, and a deep sense of sadness that here I came to help her out. And instead of appreciating my effort, the person is like questioning my effort and belittling my presence here. So when we talk about this doctrine of privacy, women are trained to, like we can say, accept it and exercise it at all times. Then there can be patterns of conflict resolution or war. And quite often we have seen that women are subjected to violence whenever one community tries to assert its presence over the other. Think about riots across time, across history. One religious community, the dominant community, the males, trying to violate, abduct, abuse the women of the other community. Why do you think Parda system entered in northern parts of India? In southern parts of India, you don't see, or extreme northeast, you don't see that women are necessarily covering their head at the time of wedding or functions or puja or this and that. It's not mandatory. Why in northern India you are considered to be cultured and traditional when you cover your head? The veil. What's the history? Because in ancient Indian history, veiling of women was not a part of the culture and tradition. So when did it emerge? When you get into the history of it, you realize that veiling the head emerged at the given time period where women were getting constantly abducted and abused. So, out of fear of losing the women, people got into the practice of veiling them. Yes, the external invasions and women getting subjected to violence. So when they realized that our women are subjected to violence, two things started emerging. One, child marriage becoming more rampant. Get the girl married so that if any any forbidding situation is happening or unforgiving situation is happening, at least she is married. So the husband or the groom will take her. And that's how, few thinkers consider that the practice of dowry emerged, other than Kanya Dan and Stri Dhan. So the very practice of giving dowry as a compensation, that like, you're taking our daughter back after marriage, after a couple of years, when she is, we can say, she has attained her puberty. So it's more like a thank you gift, that thanks, you came back, you respected the, like, wow, the promise that was made. So in this given scenario, when we talk about um, how violence manifests itself in shaping the possibilities for women, in shaping the possibilities of their presence. That's why it's considered that if there is imbalanced sex ratio beyond a limit, if the society experiences too much of skewed up sex ratio, we will experience this problem. The problem whereby women are constantly exposed to structured patterns of violence. Women can be exposed to, we can say, different patterns of subjugation. There can be patterns of crime going up. There can be prostitution going up. Because if the society is having lesser women, sexual crimes will increase. Frustration will increase in the society. Women maintain the sanity of the society with their softness, with their presence, with their emotional balance that they bring in their presence. So it's very important to have women. I don't remember which was the movie. There was a movie of Amitabh Bachchan. As a child, I had seen Satte Pe Satta. I don't know, some movie in which there are 7, 8 brothers, and they all are getting raised, and they don't have a mother. They have lost their mother, as in the parents, and they all are getting raised by themselves. And the eldest brother gets married, and he gets his wife, and then she is so shocked by seeing all the brothers, because the animal state in which they live, the way they have kept the entire house so unhygienic, the pattern of food that goes to the table, the kind of food they are eating. So, a woman, when she is in the home, in the form of a mother, sister, whosoever, she brings a different level of depth and dimension to the household. Oh, it was Satte Pe Satta. Okay, thank you, Saundarya. Those who have not watched, you don't need to worry. It's kind of humorous take on it, and I cannot tolerate the over dramatization today. But as a kid, I had watched, so somehow it just stayed. So we can see that when women are missing from the society, then also violence can manifest itself in multifarious ways. That's why having a balanced sex ratio is essential. In China, due to one child policy, when the women started, because China is also highly patriarchal. So in selective sex abortion between 70s and 80s, people got the daughters eliminated. Sometimes 7 months pregnancy was eliminated. So almost like a ready fetus getting killed. So a lot happened in China. And because of which, what happened that bit by bit, you could see that there were more number of men and very less women, which started another derogatory practices like rise in crime against women. You could see prostitution going up. You could see reverse dowry happening. Now, people who had daughters and not sons, so they started charging the men to get their daughters married. Any form of commodification is commodification. When you're paying dowry, that's also you're commodifying the girl. And when you are receiving money in exchange of getting your daughter married, still you're commodifying it. So it's not like adding glory or virtuousness to her position. You are regulating her sexuality with money, like whether for getting her married or whether for, like, just receiving any kind of functional help. Anyway, we can also see that, so if you reflect upon the incidents that happened during partition of India, at that time also you can see that how large scale human rights violation took place. There were trains filled with dead bodies, and there were sacks filled with sacks. Okay, boriyan bhar ke, sacks filled with private parts of women, breasts of women, and dead bodies mangled and stuffed in the train. I'm sorry to create such a gory picture. You might be listening and feeling so averse to all this detail that, oh my God, what is this? But just patiently try to identify with the society that you have been born in, the society you are inheriting, and the things that you need to free the society from. Because if you like run away from the problems, you cannot solve it truly. So when we talk about this given dynamics of or unfolding of violence against women, you can see from Khushwant Singh to Bhishma Sahni to Sadat Hassan Ali Manto, so many authors, like whoever has in fact written about partition, unprecedented violence against women has been hyphenated. Sadat Hassan Ali Manto was specially sensitive towards the women and the kind of violence that they have to undergo every now and then. Very disturbing pictures and the psychological aspect of it. I was so disturbed when I had read that specific story whereby there was this girl who was a teenager, very cute looking, very attractive girl, and her father keeps protecting her. And so happens that she gets separated. And after getting separated, the girl, after getting separated from her father, she is hiding in a field and hiding from all kinds of, we can say, molesters and people. And then it so happens that the father keeps complaining and keeps getting the complaint registered with the police and this and that. Finally, the police took the cognizance where they got separated, and in that area they start doing like search operation. And the girl, she comes out when they say that we are there to save you and take you to your father. And the girl comes out, and then the police gets very attracted to her, that oh, she's really good looking, and why should she go like intact. So first they rape, then the like lorry in which they like put her, where other we can say people who were victims of partition, they were put. So systematically the girl keeps getting raped by multiple people. And by the time in the refugee camp she reaches, and he's informed that the daughter has arrived, she is there, and you'll be like you'll be surprised to know that she was under treatment, like semi-conscious, because of all the abuse she had undergone on her body. The father comes and lovingly takes her name, and the child in the unconscious state, she starts opening the drawstring of her pajama. So she could not understand that it's my father, and she was so repeatedly like violated. She underwent so much of repeated violence that it just got subconsciously internalized that this is what is coming constantly do. So when you understand the psychology, how it damages women, how it can impact women. See, if you objectively speaking, if I recall Carl Jung had said that if we start seeing violence, especially towards women, very objectively, then the damage will be less. He said that when we start observing the very possibility, like let's say someone is hitting the head and the head is opening, that there will be bleeding, there will be a lot of pain, it will take some time to heal. Someone is hitting the hand will be bleeding, or it gets broken, whatever, plaster, this and that, it will take some time to heal. Simultaneously, if we take the reproductive organ also as just an organ of the body, it is getting hit, it is getting hurt, it is bleeding, it needs some medication, it will get healed. If we take it so objectively, the abuse will not have such a tremendous impact on the psyche. Now, I'll add another insight to what Carl Jung had said. Now, you'll be listening to it and be like, oh, yes, if we observe violence unfold in this manner, yes, violence cannot be like so tremendously psychologically disturbing or damaging. Let me then share this with you. Since our childhood, we are exposed to a very strong sense of privacy towards our bodies, that we have to protect it. We have to, and especially protect our private parts. One. Second thing, please understand, wherever there is extreme pain and extreme pleasure involved, the psychology gets impacted. Why do people feel so disturbed after a failed relationship? When they have a relationship between a man and a woman, or anyone for that matter, when they are in a partnership. So, why do they feel damaged when the partnership breaks, when the partner goes away? Because extreme emotions were involved. Sexuality adds to that emotion. Sexuality adds to that connect. That's why you see the most innate connect that human beings have, or the most innate connect which they try to protect, own, like um, get associated with, is associated with biology, consanguinal relation, that is parent-child relation. So you want to protect the child. Biology is involved. Tremendous emotion is involved in the upbringing and production of the child. First, pushing the child out of the body. So too much of emotion is and too much of pain and too much of so strong emotions, pain and pleasure, strong emotions are involved. Same as when it comes to a couple, strong emotions are involved because then again there is a lot of pleasure which is involved. All that gets contained and connected and controlled by the brain. The hormones are involved. That's why if you are falling on the street and breaking your leg or breaking your hand, that has a different impact from someone who has abused you, even not on street, even in a private corner. That has a more tremendous impact, more harrowing impact, because it's all about what strong uh, emotional component got triggered related to pain and pleasure. So it's that which regulates. See, when a person is, suppose the person has lost the mental stability and the person has lost any sense of connect with the possibility of body, the person does not feel it important to cover the body. Other people are making the person cover the body. So if someone who is mentally not so stable and getting sexually abused, the person doesn't realize what wrong or right has happened. For the person, it's just yet another form of violence the person experienced. Well, I cannot get into the mind of such a person, but the intensity of pain and pleasure and like and dislike is not experienced with that intensity as much as a person who's realizing the symbolisms. So it is the symbolisms along with the hormonal responses which also regulates the idea of violence. Okay, so I hope all of you are getting some in-depth understanding. I know many of you might not have thought that violence against women is also such an intense chapter. You took it like general studies that okay, types of violence, form of violence, causes of violence, efforts required to eliminate violence. Yes, all that we'll be dealing with. We are in fact dealing with the causes. But when you actually get into the root cause, that's why I told you optional, it nourishes you to the core. And these insights are what are needed. This is the way how you need to process information and things happening around you. And when that pours in essay, you come across as a person who is reflective, who is understanding and encapsulating all the wisdom in limited set of words. So when we talk about the given aspect, the given dynamics related to violence, violence against women, right? I know that this must be kind of triggering for all of you. Barely it's almost an hour and I have barely completed a page of discussion, but this background, this insight needs to be understood by all of you very thoroughly. Furthermore, when we talk about this given possibility related to violence against women and how the perpetrators may exercise, there have been several examples. I gave you the example of riots post-independence that happened, and further when we reflect upon the other incidents that happen in and around us, you can see caste-based violence that has happened for centuries. And even after independence, you can see exhaustive caste-based violence that had occurred in Bihar. So subjugation of women, we can see the ethnic violence that happened in Manipur. It was women who got targeted. So that's also another common practice to like um, exercise violence towards women, whereby we can see that a sense of superiority, a sense of coercion is exercised in the name of subjugating a woman. So that's something which all of you can connect with. Furthermore, I have given you some more points which all of you can see, that is the government inaction. Yes. Though I will say that when you are reflecting upon this point, first I'll tell you how, and then I'll tell you how this pattern is changing. Okay. Government inaction, because women lack politically assertive voice for quite a number of decades post independence. We can see that though women became voters, but they were not seen as independent voters. They were not seen as a lobby. They were not seen as a different community. It was considered that if a woman is voting, she will be voting what the father says, the husband says, the other people say. So when we are talking about this given component of violence against women, we all can see that this violence, it unfolds, it manifests itself in so many ways, which does not get duly addressed because they are not assertive voices in the domain of politics, because they are not seen as independent voices. Let me just give you a brief understanding of this through Nirbhaya Fund. Nirbhaya incident, when it happened, thousands of people across India protested. Near India Gate only, I remember there were more than 20,000 protesters for days together who kept taking ahead candle marches. And it was an issue which blew out of proportion internationally also. The international media caught attention, and there were protests across the world, but more so ever in India, different parts. It was, like we can say, quite disturbing, quite competent to RG Kar. But the thing is that it was national capital, and people, wherever there were other incidents of violence, people kept addressing it. Now, um, after that, due to the international pressure, we could also see our tourism getting affected. Arun Jaitley was the finance minister. He said 25% of our tourism has experienced the blow, and to which Nirbhaya's mother took like offense. She was like, "Oh, you are bothered about the tourism when my daughter has been abused. You are blaming my daughter." What Mr. Jaitley implied was not related to Nirbhaya. What he said was that violence against women is not a rare phenomenon, yeah, or unheard phenomena. It's quite a rampant phenomena. We all are aware of this fact, and on and off, a lot of gory activities do take place. And in such a situation, when we are talking about violence unfold for all of us on ground, we need to be particular, we need to be aware that how things can sometimes manifest itself, and how things can really articulate itself on ground, and what kind of interventions are also needed in time. Like, for example, if I'm talking about this possibility, you can see that Nirbhaya Fund got created. 1,000 crore fund was created to ensure the safety of women, and a very strong message was given to the world that we are committed to protect our women. We have created a specific fund to protect them. But after 11 months, when the data was being collected for economic survey, and how much budgetary allocation was made for what, and where the scheme or the policy has been using what kind of money for which purpose, it was seen that from this Nirbhaya Fund, in last 10 months, not a single penny has been used. So why did you create such a fund? So you created due to global pressure, but the political will was missing. When we talk about CCTV cameras across Delhi, every now and then, if there is a crime, especially phone snatching, this and that, you ask the police and they will be like, oh, the camera is not functional. Then why did you put it when it's not functional? Because, I mean, there is a purpose to the camera, and it facilitates the very identification of violence in the place, and take like proper action in time. We can see that when we talk about voting behavior of women bringing change at grassroots level, J. Lalita, she kept winning elections, and she was very popular amongst women voters because, like in early 2000, she started identifying the core challenges, crises pertaining to women and children: the nutrition of children, the education of children, taking care of the household issues of women, that how they can be addressed. And that's how she became a household name. She was like undefeated. And we could see that women could canvass over their own issues. They emerged as independent voters. Whenever women emerge as independent voters, their issues get better addressed. With respect to, if I talk about Andhra Pradesh, there was the problem of hooch drinking. And we can see that the local population, especially women, they were very tormented by local hooch, desi tharra. Okay. So you can see that when the women were getting tormented by the given possibility of how it is like happening, how the given possibility is getting articulated on ground, They first reached out to the local administration to close such hooch brewing shops, to which the local administration did not take action. So these women, they like started forming a group, more like a pressure group. And one fine day, they walked with brooms and sticks, and they started destroying all these shops. To which it so happened that the local administration intervened, and they said that, "Madam, you cannot just break and picket a private property and this and that." To which the women bet those police constables also, and they were like, "Please don't intervene." And bit by bit, the momentum caught up. More than 5,000 women were protesting on the streets, to which this is, I believe, around 2016 or so. Okay. To which what happened was that the local administration first intervened, and later you can see the opposition reached out to the women, and they said that we'll raise this issue. In 6 months, the election was upcoming, so they said that we'll raise this issue and we'll try to get it addressed in the in our Vidhan Sabha, and if you vote us to power, we will see to it that a law is made. To which the party which was in power, it immediately like responded. It said, "We'll right now make a law, and we'll ban and we'll do away with such liquor shops." So that's the power of, we can say, women getting consolidated together and realizing their political power. So you can connect these insights with respect to a political role of women. Because you have in GS paper one, role of women. So when women are a politically assertive voice, united together over their common issues, and you can understand women's issues can be far more complex or distinct from the mainstream issues. So when they work as a community, when they work together as a group, like which needs a different or a specific addressal, you can understand that the kind of local interventions they can bring can be quite tremendous or distinct. There was a question that was asked in GS. It was associated with women's movement only. And it was just, I think, 2 years or so old. The question was like, with respect to women's movement, 2022 or so. I mean, it's after 2020 only, this given question, which was related to how we can unfold, how we can see the reality on ground with respect to women's movement, that the women's movement, it is the issues that it is addressing is more related to the middle class women. It's not associated with the grassroots level women, the lower class women, the vulnerable sections amongst women. Their issues are not like catching up momentum, and they have been missing as core issues in the women's movement post independence that has taken place. A very reflective question. You have just done social movements, women's movements, connect with that, how the issues that have been taken up by the women bodies and organizations, how those issues have been moreover associated with the most of the concerns are related to middle class women, whether it is pertaining to workplace issue, whether it is related to domestic issue, the multi-pronged vulnerabilities a woman can suffer from by being a woman plus a minority, by being a woman plus a tribal, by being a woman plus a lower caste, like a Dalit or so, and clubbed with locational disadvantage. It can be a slum cluster, or it can be a rundown area, or it can be a village cluster, anywhere. So when we talk about the assertive voice whereby women consolidate and then they raise their voice, it makes a lot of difference with respect to the political engagement they can create towards themselves. So this, when we talk about government inaction, you'll be saying that, oh, it is due to lack of political willpower of the governments. Yes, that will be due to lack of political willpower of the governments. But then the question arises that when there is lack of political willpower in the governments, what are the other possibilities which can be created? What are the other manifestations that can be created if like women become active? So that's why I gave you a lot of examples from Tamil Nadu to Andhra Pradesh to one more I can give you from Uttar Pradesh. You can see that during COVID, a lot of people died. And in UP, there were some very disturbing images which were there, which all of us could see. that was related to the satellite imagery of dead bodies, like they were like scattered around, like across the river bank, couple of kilometers away from Kanpur. Those disturbing images were also used by international media. Now, with so much of death and devastation happening, and many people blaming the government that the state government that they were inefficacious in handling the crisis pertaining to COVID. And many people believed that the government will will undergo a change. So people believed that Samajwadi Party is coming to power. But we saw BJP coming to power. Why did it happen? Again, get it connected to women's issue and violence and crime against women. So a lot of women whose husbands, brothers, fathers voted for Samajwadi Party, they voted for BJP. By giving this reason that when Samajwadi Party was in power, like a couple of years back, then eve teasing, molestation, abuse towards women was very high, like gangs filled with Samajwadi Party goons and different type of vehicles filled with that, having those flags. They used to like pass by, and when girls were coming back from schools or colleges, pulling their dupatta, eve teasing them, that was a very common thing. So it was women who made BJP win. And then you can remember that after BJP won in Uttar Pradesh, the Prime Minister made a public statement whereby he said that I thank especially the mothers, the daughters, our sisters of UP who have made this win possible. So please understand, BJP is trying to understand, or the party in power, it is trying to understand the role of women, the political role of women. And so the assertive voice of women keeps growing. You can see this Lok Sabha bill related to 33% reservation of women in Lok Sabha. It got passed almost after 25 years. Why so? Because the changing, we can say, course of politics is something which is being witnessed. And this changing course of politics with respect to women's participation, when it is witnessed, now they are somewhere observed as a voting, we can say, lobby, as they are being observed as a group which is constantly, we can say, participating, constantly reflecting on this given dynamics. Even triple talaq to attract Muslim women votes. Yes, yes, yes. So when we are talking about this government inaction, yes, till the time women are not active voters, they are not raising their own voice independently, they are not talking about the interventions which should be caused. Nitish Kumar promising liquor ban in Bihar, so very true. So all this, now if you guys are able to join the dots, that's so amazing. So when we speak of government inaction, whenever there is an election, I always ask people that are we keeping environment as the first point of agenda? I mean, national capital, it is dying in smoke. And is it the first point in the agenda of the public when they're going to vote? Women's safety, another core concern. Is that a matter of agenda? The priority that people are taking in concern while voting? Urban planning and decentralized planning, are they keeping that in mind while voting? And that applies to the nation as well. Because environmental crisis with respect to women, there are some core issues. And sometimes we don't see as a part of the core agenda. And that's why the reflection that's given here, that when women lack that assertive voice, then policy designing, policy implementation, legal assertiveness, all kinds of reforms, it can get impacted, which further like creates marginalization of women. You need to understand that. So when we talk about all these given possibilities, you can see that violence, we can see that violence, it is generally understood as illegal and criminal use of force. However, when we talk about the feminist view, so what is the feminist view? That the violence, the concept of violence is much broadened. Okay. So what is it that we can consider violence to be? So illegal or criminal use of force, everyone can connect. You all were defining that, right? But what is a broadened concept? So it can be connected to exploitation and discrimination of all forms that's unfolding in and around us. And in this given scenario, when we are talking about threat of force, and when we are reflecting upon inflicting self-violence, we all can see that the forms of violence which result on the gender basis is violence against women. So when we speak of it traditionally, okay, so traditionally, we can see that India, it is a patriarchal society. And if India is a patriarchal society where Manusmriti is also talking about Dhol, Shudra, Pashu, and Nari, ये सब ताड़न के अधिकारी means they, I mean, that is something which Tulsidas is speaking. And other than Tulsidas, in Manusmriti also, violence against women is like, is somewhere allowed. It is something which is permissible. Why? So we can see that somewhere the society must be accepting. The society must be considering it okay to exercise coercion upon a woman to control her, to regulate her behavior. We can see that, like, if you talk about like books like Mahabharata, we can see that a woman who's too assertive, like Panchali, is also getting subjected to violence. If you read about Panchali or Draupadi, you'll get to know the personality of the woman, and that might, like, startle you, many of you who are not aware of it. So, someone writing a book like centuries back and portraying a woman who's so fiercely independent, who's so fiercely speaking her own mind out. Or it's not just one book. We can see in Ramayana, there is the depiction of Sita, who is again very vociferous about her rights. Her husband is saying, you stay back because, see, your sister in law has also stayed back. And she's like, no, I have taken an oath to be next to you through your pain and pleasure. So I will be like close to you when we are going to the forest as well. I will be bearing the same crises and challenges. So we can see there is this woman who's constantly speaking her mind out. During her abduction, the cause was this, that you can see that the husband said, stay inside the hut. Do not like get lured by any kind of distraction because it can make your position vulnerable. And here comes the hermit, and he is seeking like food. He is hungry, and he's saying that, oh, your privacy is more important than my hunger. This is the sense of service you have towards society. And then she thought that, yes, my security is secondary to serving the need. That's how women who are preparing for civil services, they also think that my security is secondary to public service. No woman who's getting into service thinks that, oh, once I get into service, that I'll be more vulnerable to like abuse, or maybe in a Naxal area, I can get abducted, or I can experience some kind of bullet or violence. But is that scope not there? So service first, and the principle of like serving the people first over and above your security is something you can see like getting exercised or as a nascent thought for centuries, prevailing for centuries. I know that I'm giving you a very different insight pertaining to what you have been exposed to related to all these books and texts and stuff. But when we are discussing about an issue of violence and its manifestation, we have to see all the other ancillary activities which happen in and around, which also shape, which also we can say articulate the other forms of discrimination, and how women have tried to carve their own space as a response to this form of discrimination and violence that has happened to them. So when we talk about it, we can see that patriarchy, when you are reflecting upon it, you can see that patriarchal structure which creates unequal relations between like men and women. And you can see that the primary factor responsible for violence is somewhere patriarchal discrimination, which they are subjected to, which also leads to denial of equal rights. And this denial of equal rights, we all can see, it is somewhere also institutionalized. Institutionalized, like traditionally, inheritance of immovable property was for men, right? So we all could see whether it was Mitakshara law or Dayabhaga law, the property was moving from father to son. Whereas immovable property, 1/3 of family property converted in immovable form was supposed to be given in the form of stridhan to the girl. That was the traditional practice. A lot of changes happened in between. We are not going to get into it. But we all can understand that unfolding of patriarchy in this form with respect to right to property created a lot of challenges on ground when a right to property act was passed almost 2 decades back, and when women started asserting their presence and demanding for their right on ground. It created turbulent relationships in their families because it was against the institutionalized patriarchy pertaining to control and access over property. So, when we say violence, violence can also occur when your opportunities are snatched. When you have money, when you have control over resources, you know this given possibility that, when the well, money is there, and if it is there, you can have like new entrepreneurial ventures, you can have your own kind of interventions, you can shape and regulate a lot of possibilities. So when you start reflecting upon the term associated with violence against women, I believe all of you can understand that it is not just physical violence or sexual violence. It can manifest itself in so many ways. Furthermore, we can see that when we are talking about women with respect to seeking equality or equal rights, simultaneously or along with men, here you can see the term vis-a-vis. Please memorize these terms, use it in your answers so that, like, when you write, it is more polished, it's more profound. Because, like, say, a student is writing 6 points in an answer, another one is also writing 6 points. One has written a very generalized language, one has written a thought provoking language. This one will get at least half marks extra. If 10 such answers are also influenced, you get 5 marks extra. You have 4 GS papers, you have 1 essay, you have 2 optional papers. With 5 marks extra per paper, you make a quantum leap of, we can confidently say, and I believe all of you can connect with it. So, a quantum leap, right, of almost 35 marks. That's what power of language. Keep working on it. So, with respect to this, when we further um, try to understand this nature of violence, you can see that when women, they have, sometimes they also co-opted this patriarchal system. What is co-opting of patriarchal system? Best example, mother-in-law. When she internalizes patriarchy, then the woman will further patriarchal patterns of violence and discrimination. Please understand, patriarchy is not inequality being exercised by men towards women. Even a woman can exercise discrimination and inequality towards other women in the name of furthering the ideals, the values, the insights of patriarchy. That can also happen. So here, when we are talking about it, you can see this. So women, like in the society, there are women who run brothels. They try to regulate and exploit the other women in prostitution by keeping them under inebriated condition, intoxicating them. I was listening to an interview whereby a woman who was subjected to prostitution, she was saying that she was sharing how the brothel used to run. So the brothel owner, who was a woman, she used to see that the girl who's an adolescent has been brought to the brothel. She first becomes pregnant within the first year, and then they'll take away the baby. And then they will be charging the woman to like 200 rupees per visit to the child. So she will have to earn, and she will be then ready to become a prostitute more eagerly or more openly. And then with that money which she is paying, they will let the woman meet the child. Right? I told you, extreme emotions, wherever it's involved, it can open or subject you to other forms of violence and other patterns of exploitation. So that's what. So, when we are talking about this, we can see that another factor responsible for increasing violence against women is modernity. Okay. So, when we are talking about modernity, Modernity will relate you to consumerism. With consumerism, objectification of women. And with objectification of women, that she should be like sexually appealing, she should look in a specific manner, right? So she should look in a specific figure and all that stuff. So that will be like engaging her to very nuanced forms of very, I would say, different forms of violence that she can be subjected to. So you can see that um, I've written this also. Surprisingly, feminists rarely show dissent against fashion industry, like on and off. You can listen to a few of them, but yeah, it is existing and it's not getting majorly like protested somewhere. That acceptance is there. Modern industry, we can see that it pulled women out of closet, and it has when we can see that they are working like in post-industrial economy, in the industrial economy, they started working, intellect started getting recognized, knowledge-based economy, the dominance of knowledge elites, all that happened. But at the same time, the commodification also started happening, whereby she became the poster girl, whereby she became the item number. And all this will also perpetuate violence. Okay. So perpetuation of violence also happens because of this. So globalization and modernization has also like made her position quite vulnerable when we speak of it. So when you're tracing violence, start from the condition before her birth itself. Okay. So that's why I have like traced it since her birth to her death, and stage by stage you can reflect upon it. There was a question in GS also, other than sociology, the patterns of question that we had reflected yesterday. There was a question in GS that said that reflect upon the patterns of discrimination that women experience with respect to time and place. That was the question, time and place. The moment you think about time, you can reflect upon the different age groups and the kind of violence that she can be subjected to, the discrimination she can be subjected to. So even before her birth, she can suffer from, we can say, some kind of resistance in the form of either eliminating her as a fetus. So feticide, if she is born, then she becomes an unwanted girl. You didn't want a girl. There was some meta preference. And then you start exercising discrimination towards her by not giving her good quality meals, good quality education, so all that stuff. Again, there is double burden with respect to like a daughter when dowry gets involved, that you have to first raise a daughter and then you have to spend behind her marriage, whereas son becomes a double asset because the son will be earning and adding to the family income, adding to the family property, and along with that, the son will also be bringing dowry home. So all that we can connect with this. National Family Health Survey, it also showcased that 80% of women who had two sons, they didn't want a third child. This NFHS is of 2015-16, which had showcased this fact. Okay. Because different national family health surveys we have discussed in other chapters also. So you will be seeing that the latest one we discussed just day before yesterday, the key findings. Also in the topic of poverty, you will be taking the National Family Health Survey key findings. Please update it. The 6 is already rolling. First phase of data collection has happened. When the second phase is complete and Niti Aayog publishes it, please update your notes accordingly. All right. But these key reflections, they do not wane out of relevance. You should not feel that, oh my God, isn't it too old? That's why you see, I've not mentioned the year. And society does not change overnight. Social preferences, customs, thought processes, they do not change overnight. So that's how you can use this insight, because you need to quote in sociology, you need to quote the information from where it comes. That's why it's science of society. So it will be scientific only when you are able to validate your answer. You're able to prove from where you are framing that opinion, either a thinker or a commission, a report, a committee, a published author, anything. So small family norms, it was increasingly getting accepted, but more than 50% of women, another insight that was seen, who had 5 daughters, they demanded one male child. So those small families becoming a norm. If a woman is having more number of daughters, then she still desires for a son, despite the fact that domestic expenses would increase. She's already having a lot of children to take care of. So that's how women internalize patriarchy. Okay. So with respect to this, we can see that in North India, it's as it is written that sometimes they become the bastions of patriarchy. So you can see that a male child is preferred, and I think all of you are aware of the reasons, right? First and foremost, men, they are generally elder to women when they are getting married, so they will become older and they'll die fast. So the woman's life expectancy is better, her immunity is better, and she's also younger in age, so she'll survive even beyond her husband. So in that situation, she will depend on the children to take care of them, right? And when the children are taking care of the women in that situation, she is aware that having, like, let's say, more number of children, especially sons, is an old age security. So it is the son who will be taking care of her as she ages. So that's how son preference creeps in very subtle. And that's how patriarchy unfolds itself. Okay. So sun needed for old age in, and that's how you can just connect with this. Modernization is also working for patriarchy. So we can see that selective sex abortion, I think you are aware of all this, right? So we can see the sex ratio. There was a question that why the most affluent, not all, it was written why few of the, remember the key words of the question, it makes a lot of difference. So few of the most affluent states in India have a skewed up sex ratio. So first is, who are these few states who are also affluent? And what is the reason behind affluence? So these few states, if we reflect upon them, Punjab, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, parts of Andhra Pradesh, and they are affluent because of the success of Green Revolution. So who's the property owner? The father, the son, the men. And who is adding to the property? The men. To whom is the property getting transferred? To men. So when affluence is coming and it is getting further, we can say, strengthened or increased in a family due to the men, the relative status of women will diminish. So affluence is coming. You expect that if there is more money, you will not be discriminating against women, or you won't have a problem if a woman is there in terms of feeding her, in terms of taking care of her. But on ground, when you actually reflect upon the reality, you see that these affluent states are exercising selective sex abortion furthermore. But the question arises, why? Because the same thing as I shared a couple of minutes back, that is double burden and double asset component. So when the daughter is treated as a double burden, then selective sex abortion will happen. And now the technology will also reach out to these places. So technology will further ease it. See, killing an infant can be an emotionally damaging experience for few. But killing like a fetus does not bear any guilt, because the emotional attachment with the fetus has yet not been established by the rest of the family members. To a certain extent, the mother may experience it because she is constantly experiencing the change in her body and that connect with the fetus. But with the rest, that emotional connect is not there. So abortion becomes relatively easier. So that's also something which will impact the sex ratio, and that's why few of the more affluent states in India have skewed up sex ratio. All right. Again, further, when we are talking about it, so all these things, modernity, ultrasound, abortion, I think all of you can cope up with this. So when we further move ahead, we can see that girl child is denied all this like healthcare, nutrition, education, and I think all of you can connect with this given possibility, right? Because you can see this discrimination happening at several levels, right? Again, grandmother's prescription, which is used for a girl child, that's also something which we all can connect with. Okay. Again, further, we can see that when we are talking about it, we can see that, okay, this grandmother's prescription for male child, for girl child, it is considered they are ready to wait for about 6 to 7 days. Okay. About 6 to 7 days. Then they carry the girl to the hospital. And when it comes to male child, they are ready to wait for 2 to 3 days. This was also a case study which was initially done in Karnataka with respect to healthcare of girl child, and formal institutional support extended to her in times of illness. Jean Dresse, he studied in Karnataka and he had put forth a female disadvantage index. So if the value of FDI is high, means it is a society experiencing high levels of patriarchy. If the value is low, then it means there is relatively gender equality or gender just society. So he collected the data at district level from Karnataka, and then he found out later on, he collected the data from other states. So he found out that in Haryana, in Rajasthan, in UP, you can see accordingly how gender injustice or discrimination has existed. And you can see the figures or the values being very high. Whereas in Karnataka, it was the lowest, that is 3, Tamil Nadu 4, coastal Andhra Pradesh 6, and Kerala being 10. So Karnataka being moderately patriarchal. And then this example of healthcare being denied to the girl child, whereby if she is ill, she is not like taken to the hospital in the first go. Simultaneously, violence against women is also not unheard of. Means every once in a while, violence against women, slapping and abusing and all that is like quite rampant. In 1982, we can see Dave, he conducted like study of 1,000 victims of children and especially with respect to girl child. So he found that 10% of these cases were of sexual abuse. Another case by 1990 by Malvika showed that 1,000 cases of rape, one-fourth happened below the age of 16. So you cannot say, oh, a girl was like, like luring or inducing or something like that. Again, we can see that in this 20% of cases were that of children who were below 10 years of age. So the children had not even attained puberty. And then comes disturbing facts that keep coming across India with respect to sexual violence of children. If I talk about a report that was published in the Asian Age, report of Asian Age, it said that, um, it said that about 30% of um, people into prostitution. Okay, so 30% of them who are into prostitution are less than 12 years of age. That means consent is missing, child abuse is there, pedophiles are moving around us, right? So you can connect with that. Uh, Again, with respect to this, when we are talking about this children less than 10 years of age, just after Nirbhaya incident only, there was a very triggering incident that happened 6 months later only. There was this case which was reported from AIMS, whereby a child who was less than 6 months old, was admitted to the hospital, whereby in her private parts, shards of blade, bottle, and whatnot was shoved in. When the surgery was going on to save the child, and a lot of media ruckus and hullabaloo was going on outside the hospital, one of the doctors commented that why are people suddenly triggered by these incidents? If they come to AIMS, they'll get to know that every week we get several such cases. Every week, several such cases means in a month, how many more? And then in a year. So what's wrong with the society when little kids, I mean, are susceptible to this form of violence? Commenting upon women's clothes, their timing, their location, their freedom, uh, or even the way they talk, inviting that violence is so improper. And I think all of you can connect with that dimension as well. So, Delhi police also it did a study of women who were raped between Jan to August, and in this study they found that 75% of victims were between the age of 7 to 18, because children are susceptible, they are not sexually aware. Sometimes parents have not trained them how to take care of their well-being, to manage their privacy, to manage their, we can say, um, like we can say physical movement, whereby someone is trying to nab them, how they can run, how they can shout, how they can make an assertive resistance. So that makes that situation possible. Very often, you will be surprised to know that rapes are conducted by near ones or people who are known to the child. Means incest occurring in the family or some kind of abuse happening within the neighborhood. That's that's the most rampant phenomena when it comes to child abuse. It's most of the times the perpetrator is known to the child. That's how you can connect with this. So you can see that only 57 rapes were unknown and rest were committed by the known people. And out of 681 rapes, so this 57 were unknown. Rest everyone was known. And 15 were by father and other 15 were by stepfather. I know these are disturbing details that may feel you nauseous, but that's what the ground level facts are. Okay. So I was talking about this, that missing consent and incest occurring in the family or in and around the neighborhood. So you can see this. So the victim is stigmatized due to patriarchy, that don't raise an alarm, don't talk about it in the society because it will bring bad name to the family. But yes, all that you can connect. So there's also sexual harassment. We can see sexual harassment that occurred in public places and places of work, which you can consider. And all this is generally due to internalizing patriarchy. So, whereby women are objectified or lewd comments are passed or their work efficiency is questioned. So, all that can also be. We can see there's also violence in conjugal homes. Do you remember the word conjugal? People, let me see who can remember conjugal family. Who is there in a conjugal family? Yes, wife battering is also common in all classes. Don't think it to be a very poverty stricken fact. It also happens in all different classes. Yes, who is going to type what is a conjugal family? I have taught you in family marriage and kinship. So, and further connected with dowry and harassment as well, marriage based homes. Okay, yeah, I mean, marriage based homes, basically a conjugal family comprises of wife, husband, and their children. So that's how you're supposed to connect with it. So conjugal family, wife battering common in all classes, and violence in conjugal homes. Generally, what do you consider? That if wife and husband are there, there'll be a power dynamics which is relatively well balanced. Because in a joint family, patriarchy will be moreover present, right? Or if, like, let's say, if there is a family in which there are more number of relatives coming from the husband's side, the power dynamics is more associated with the husband side. That's how you can connect. But here we all can, oh my goodness, why did I touch my head? So we all can see that the very dynamics associated with gender relations, it gets impacted in this given situation or scenario, and like a definite level of intervention is required. Okay, we can also see that there can also be dowry related harassment, and sometimes all this can also lead to suicide related deaths as well. So that's how parent with their child. Yes, you can consider that. So in that situation, it's basically always remember conjugal means there'll be focus on a final relation rather than consanguineal relation. Always remember that. That means focus on wife-husband relation. Yes, there's a child or two, but the focus is more on the affinal relation in a conjugal family. Okay. When we are talking about consanguineal family, the focus will be more on blood relation. So, like, let's say the parents and the son and the daughter-in-law and the children. So, there's dominance of, we can say, parental relation or parental, I'm saying, blood relation. So consanguineal family, blood relation, affinal family will be related to marriage. And in conjugal family, it is relatively well balanced. Now, so when we are talking about it, we can also see there can be also false allegations pertaining to things. There can be a beating due to dowry if we are talking about reasons. Okay. So there can be also forced sexual intercourse, which is, in other words, like domestic rape. or marital rape that takes place. So, forms of violence, when we talk about it, we can see there are different types of violence. I've enlisted it. I think all of you can go through it. So, from child prostitution, human trafficking, violation of modesty or rape and dowry, domestic violence, NRI, husbands' atrocities, violence during political protests, communal violence, Dalit women, atrocity on widows, all of it. Now, we can see that the social, psychological, and the structural causal factors also associated with the prevalence of violence that happens against women. So let us reflect upon first the social structural factors. So in this, you all can start connecting specific unfolding. We discussed about it, like how value bias developed towards women and how this heavy value bias also impacted the status of women, whereby the notion of inferiority towards women was introduced as a social value. And we can also like reflect upon the women's status becoming quite complicated over the time period. So please don't write this मुगल रूल लिखना था, टाइपो टाइपो एरर उस बच्चे ने लिखा होगा मुगल रूल का मुस्लिम रूल, and then the typist also typed it. I told you that this slipshod. Okay. So owing to this, we can see the social cost of inflicting violence on women, it becomes low. So men, if inflicting violence on women, it was not stigmatized, rather it was justified. We saw that Manusmriti, we saw that Tulsidas writing in Ramcharitmanas. Some people try to justify it. I still remember one of our university professors. I told you that second optional subject other than sociology that I had was Hindi literature. So one of our professors had actually given this insight that some thinkers, and very interestingly, he spoke like some thinkers will try to justify Tulsidas by saying that, oh, when he said dhol, pashu, shudra, or nari, ye sab taran ke adhikari, he did not say taran, he actually meant taran. Taran means they need to be liberated. So whether it is like, let's say, a woman, she needs to be liberated, a Dalit needs to be liberated, Shudra, okay? And then we don't equate the words, but you understand the difference, caste system, I've taught. And then you can see the animal needs to be liberated from that enforced labor work that the animal is exposed to. But how about the drum? What kind of liberation does the drum need? So, to which the professor had said to us that when you get into understanding a given society, don't try to put modern values to the, like we can say, the previous societies, because let us not necessarily impose our present day values on those societies. The societies have evolved during the centuries, and not everything about every society has been ideal or perfect. And not every thinker or philosopher who has spoken in the past has been a perfect human being. So let us accept the limitations they were suffering from according to their time, according to their exposure, according to, we can say, the situations they were exposed to. So he said that don't try to manipulate it. So if ever you listen to any such thing on YouTube or any senior, you can just give it a pass. Now, so violence did get somewhere, we can say, like validated, and we all can see that happening every now and then. So we can see that when women they internalize the social values, they also accept that they are inferior to men, and they also accept that yeah, once in a while, if violence is being like exercised, we should not overreact to it. And few people must have watched that movie Thappad, and in that movie also, I did not watch the movie. I just watched the trailer, and in which Tapsi Pannu was there and Amitabh Bachchan was there and all that. And people said that it was a very good movie. But the thing is, the entire movie was based around the thing that how and on what basis can the husband actually hit the wife. And many people towards the beginning, when she demanded divorce on that basis, people were like, you're overreacting. She's like, no, I'm not overreacting. It's just depicting that how the man thinks. And it's just depicting that how he finds it okay to exercise violence towards women. And today, this is a physical version. There'll be other versions also, which must be inside him, which might be encouraging this person to think that it's fine if out of the tremendous like emotion, I can exercise the violence. So you can connect with those. Okay, very nice movie. Ek hi thappad magar nahi marna tha. Okay, all right. I've not watched it, but I heard rave reviews, and I said that it was all about like how the component of violence should not be exercised, and then the protagonist, she says this thing that it cannot be justified on any ground, not even in casual way. And I would like to say vice versa also. I mean, no woman out of any angst, any sense of restlessness or like whatever, she should be exercising violence towards any of her male counterpart. Like whether it's like we can say when you're a grown up, whether it's your male friend or it's like your husband or it's your brother or anyone for that matter. You don't need to get violent for that matter. You can always, like, if you don't like something, you can always talk about it. So, men, on the other hand, they were appreciated if there was violence being exercised by them. Means, if a woman is exercising violence, you'll see that men will be like considered cowardly. They will be considered not virile enough. Whereas if a man is exercising violence, the person can be, we can see, I'm just speaking reverse of what's written here. So a man can be stopped in the society or people can come and question. But I personally feel that violence being exercised by anyone, man or woman, should not be done. And it should be protested by all the sane individuals in the society. So when a man is controlling his wife, when he is once in a while asserting or showing his eyes or is like trying to discipline the wife, it is considered normal in the society. While when we are reflecting upon the crises which occur with respect to women uh, being very loud and being very cranky, then it is not considered proper. So, violence coming from any side is improper. But the truth is, we have different responses with respect to who is exercising that violence. We have different responses pertaining to the same. Now, with respect to this, when we talk about patriarchy, we can connect with a lot of points pertaining to it as well. So, in this given dimension, when we are talking about like patriarchy, we all can see that a patriarchal family system, it is one where ultimate authority rests with the patriarch and the oldest male member. And we can see there's a clear division of labor between men and women. And we can see that when men go out, okay, for work, it is considered as a family based necessity. Whereas if a woman is going out, it can have several implications. Also, we can see women traditionally they accepted work for lesser pay, and that also reduced their bargaining power. So we can see that women can like get lesser pay for the same work. And please don't consider it as a third world country problem. This is something which you can also find happening in and across developed countries like Japan as well, as it was reported by none other than Dr. Amartya Sen, that considering that patriarchy is manifesting itself or unfolding only in India is also a wrong presumption to begin with. So, when we are talking about the patterns of violence that occur around us, there is also the contradictions of change. So, any change occurring in the society, like for example, modernization. So, from conservative thought process to modern thought process, we can see that sometimes consumer or material modernity occurs faster, but value based modernity does not occur. And this lack of value based modernity, we can say that perpetuation of traditional violence can be observed occurring in the society. So that's why we can say that despite like a manifestation of material modernity, we can see that there can be moral policing that can be incorporated. We can see that this was the incident like the Mangalore pub incident, or there can be several incidents which you can see. There was Jessica Lal murder case whereby there was this young model girl who was killed by Manu Sharma, like when I was in college, and he just shot her because he asked for a drink, And Jessica Lal, she was like, the pub is closed, so I can't serve you anymore. And he was in an inebriated condition. So he's like, you don't know who I am. I am a very senior IS officer's son, and how dare you talk like that to me? And she was like, I just cannot cross the line. That's the regulation of the hotel. And he just shot her, and she died on the spot. And to your utmost surprise, near Oberoi Hotel, there's this one of the wings of the prison cell. And to my like utmost shock, I got to know that on and off, he was not only coming out on parole later when the case got a little snubbed from people's attention, but his father used to book a room in Oberoi, and most of the times he was not staying in the prison. A guard used to take him and keep him in Oberoi, and his bills were paid by the father. And whenever some kind of attendance check, this and that was done, he was just supposed to get back over there and just do all the formal work and then get back to his prison cell for those formal work. And other times he was staying in the Oberoi. So that problem when we talk about it, that victimization. So somewhere patriarchy can unfold itself in so many ways when we are talking about it. The same happened once in Bengal a couple of years back when there was a woman who she was a divorcee and she was having some mental strain, and she stepped out and she decided that she would be like going for a night party. And at 2 o'clock, when she was about to get back, four men chased her, dragged her into the car, and molested her. And there was a lot of protest also that followed up, but a lot of people started doing moral policing. Why was she clubbing at night? And just because she was out 2 o'clock at night, that's why it happened. Well, any abuse that happens at any given hour, it is because the person did not bother for consent. It was because the person just wanted to exercise coercion. So rather than victim shaming and victim blaming, we need to understand that it has to do with the societal and mental maturity of the individual with respect to what is the importance of consent, and whether the woman is ready for any kind of relationship or not. Furthermore, we can see there can be also rise in aspirations. So rising aspirations can also lead to the challenges pertaining to NRI grooms, which all of you are aware that they get the women married and then they just try to use her more like a servant, and in different countries abroad. And that's how they get subjected to different patterns or types of violence. So that's how we all can connect with it. We can also see there can also be other kind of challenges pertaining to like overseas relationship, whereby every now and then you can see on Netflix different types of series coming up, docu series coming up, whereby a woman has been abused, or she has been swindled. uh, so there was this Swindler, something like that, that was out 2 years back or so. Every now and then online cheating takes place. People make fake profiles on matrimonial websites, and people who are married, they have a family, they get into cyclical abuse of women. So many cases keep pouring in every now and then. And women who have taken up the responsibility and they have protested irrespective of the societal pressure and image. So all that can be added over here. We can see dowry death. It's not that dowry cases are fake or unknown, they still happen. Oh, there was a movie also, No One Killed Jessica. I was not aware of it. So yes, I mean, a movie also must have been made. So violence, I think all of you are now understanding it's not like one dimensional. It's a multi-pronged problem. It happens because of several reasons. There are various social, psychological, economic, political reasons feeding the fire. And you all can even like religion can, or traditions can also substantiate such patterns, right? So we all can see that this rapid social change, changing moral values, people unable to catch up with the changing morality and values, and that can lead to normlessness. Okay, all right. So we all can see that can lead to normlessness, and all the normlessness can articulate itself in the pattern of violence that can be exercised towards women. Because if there's rapid social change and people are unable to cope up with it, yes, that can be manifested in this manner. Role of mass media, I think all of you are aware of it. The way the consumer lifestyle is sold, advertisements, they constantly try to stereotype women, and they typifying their looks, right? So all that size zero, and also, like, so much of Botox and so much of silicone being thrusted in women's bodies, so so that they look in a specific manner, they are visible in a specific manner. So all that um, can constantly be witnessed, right? So this I was talking about that Bollywood housewives or whatever it is. So in that also you can see women are constantly talking about getting plastic surgery done, getting Botox done, getting this treatment, that treatment done. And then comes in this season Shalini Pasi, and she just turns the tables for many women in terms of the way she looks. And um, you can see that women like constantly talking about quote unquote her rack. So that's like typifying looks and presentation and how a woman should look like. And that poor woman unable to enjoy life freely, casually. What is being casual? That has been taken out of her system. And that's a violence she has experienced, I think, for decades together since her childhood. Because a child who's not made to feel normal in pajamas, a child who's not being raised whereby it is told to her that it's very much okay to move around in shorts. It's perfectly fine to be in casual clothing. You don't need to always wear a gown. She is constantly served a specific image, how a girl should look proper or to be. Though she is accepting diversity in front of us, that other people can be diverse. They can dress up the way they can be the way they can be in different body shapes and types. But when it comes to her own self, she is too much of a strict disciplinarian, right? She is unable to even enjoy like a drink casually. She is using a straw to drink it. And when her friend asks, why are you using a straw? She's like, my enamel, it's natural without any treatment. And it is because I don't damage it by exposing it to drinks directly. I just sip it. I mean, there are certain drinks which you need to sip it normally rather than with a straw to enjoy it, because when it spreads in your mouth, then only your taste buds are able to experience it or feel it. If we are directly taking it down, gulping it down, the taste component gets compromised. So, I mean, a person unable to enjoy life easily, she was one of the best examples which I saw was a victim of stereotyping the image of a woman, how she should be a multitasker, how she should look like, how she should be, and constantly chasing her own targets in her own mind almost every day without relaxing or without being easy about how a woman can probably be. So all that also adds to the problem. Pornography, another like massive problem. Ever increasing pornography and exposure to pornography will also lead to desensitization of children at a very young age towards women. And that's the reason that when young kids are getting exposed to pornography at very young age, and they do not understand the importance of human relations, the beauty of and unfolding of human relations, they tend to think about violence. For example, during COVID, means just after COVID, 2021, there was a viral message string, which all of you must have got to know because it's not too long back, whereby students from one of the noted Delhi schools, like a group of students, a WhatsApp group whose chat got leaked. So its chat got leaked and it was discussing about raping one of their classmates. And it came as an utter shock. So how come boys who are barely 16 years of age talking about raping their own classmate? Where is the idea of respecting individuals when you are supposed to be very innocent at that age? When you're supposed to be filled with innocent emotions? Someone is like feeling so violent about exercising sexual abuse towards a child, another child. It so happened again, couple of years back, it happened in Goa, where a couple had come with their young daughter who was barely 15, 16 years old. for tourism. And it so happened that it was evening, maybe 8 or 9, and the daughter was just taking a stroll around the hotel, and young boys nabbed her down. Those boys themselves were 17 years old, and they nabbed her down and they raped her around the beach. And this girl, she fainted. They thought that she is killed and they just ran away. And later on, when her, no, she was killed also. Oh my God, yes, another one fellow, he felt that she is dead. So I don't know, something he did because of which she died. And it was a case that blew out of proportion. And I knew one of the boys because he was my cousin's. My cousin was very junior, like her classmate. She's like, I just can't imagine that this person like could be in this crime. It was just, and he kept saying that, oh, we were in an inebriated condition. We went for partying and we were drinking at the beach and we just wanted to have some fun. And we saw this girl and we did not bother for her consent and we pinned her down. That's the problem. So it's not a problem which you can think of elderly men. Let me tell you, majority of the crime against women on regular basis, which is done, is by senior men. Mostly you'll see that 35, 40 plus men who are like kind of frustrated and they are exercising violence. But nowadays, due to pornography, it is filtering down to the lower strata as well. Another interesting case that came in 2021, 2020 or 2021, if you Google search, you'll find it. It was on one of the law pages, legal pages, which was coming from one of the districts of UP, probably Bahraich. And the case was this, that the pornographic videos associated with real life live rape was recorded. And those live rape, which were being recorded and then sold in the form of CD, rather than 10 rupee, I mean, the people who are purchasing movies on pen drive, any Hollywood, Bollywood movie for 10 rupee per movie in the pen drive, the live uh, video of a girl getting raped being recorded and sold for 100 rupee. The thing is, how can a fellow sell it? And how about his own sensibility? And how about all those people who are purchasing to have fun? So, are there potential rapists moving around our society who are ready to watch such a thing, who are seeking pleasure out of such a thing? So, nowadays, there is an increased incidence of watching pornography, which is based on violence. And that also impacts the mental health and well being of both men and women. Women in terms of getting victimized, men in terms of exercising that violence. A lot of pornographic sites, if you visit, you'll be finding, I don't know why, there are abusive and illicit relationships mentioned there, like um, women, a girl, young girl enjoying with stepfather, a girl enjoying it with her brother, like step brother, step sister. I mean, if you read the patterns, and if you give even a momentary thought also, like couple of seconds also, you're like, how can you visualize? Because you're putting a name. You are not writing wife and husband having fun. You're putting some like incestuous relationships. A person choosing that video, if the person is like least bothered about titles, if the person is reading the titles and is visualizing those titles, then that has a damaging impact. If it is like you're trying to show father daughter, or like a brother sister, or you're trying to show stepson and like a stepmother or something like that, so you are injecting incest in the subconscious of the society through pornography. That's why when we talk about pornography and violence against women, this is how you're supposed to talk about. Okay. Then sometimes law of the land can also be quite ambiguous in terms of its interpretation, in terms of its execution. So we can see Neera Desai, she observed that there is a basic contradiction related to women in the fundamental rights. So while women are referred to as equal citizens in Article 15, we can see that uh, the right to freedom of religion, which is embodied in 25 to 28, there are certain personal rights which are denied to women in various facets of life. Like, for example, the Muslim personal law It like dictates that man can dispose of the wife by saying triple talaq thrice. But no such provision was for women, or for that matter, how that woman can be protected from any such random call or any such, like, irregular behavior. That is something which needed like counter response. And that's what we can see that the Indian laws try to create. Again, we can see there are a lot of customs which women are supposed to follow at all times. And in the name of those customs, we can further see a lot of exploitation unfolds on ground related to the well-being of the women, whether physical well-being or nature of participation. So you can see that. So there are a lot of anomalous possibilities which can occur in the system. So even the definition of rape, it does not extend to marital rape because of the a lot of, we can say, cliched possibilities and also abuse of the law. Because yes, a law needs to be foolproof whereby both the parties and their interests are duly safeguarded. So this law can be misused or abused, agreed. But when it comes to a woman being heavily abused, in that situation, like in I can talk about Delhi NCR region, every season when their marriage takes place, after the marriage, marital rape cases and like terrible marital rape cases are reported every season in Delhi. Every season means you can come across such practices whereby you get to know that a girl has experienced a fracture in hand or leg or here or there. Her private parts are over bleeding because the husband inserted some foreign object which should not have been, and she experienced a rupture in her uterus or in her vagina. So she needs to undergo an urgent surgery. So a lot of painful like facts you'll get to know. And I believe that in those complex cases, at least, there should be a law to address it. Presently, it will quantify into domestic violence, it will quantify into other forms of abuses. But having a distinct law which can have a distinct level of punishment, that is something which is still missing. And the truth is, if you make law for such extremely violent act, then the people who are experiencing lesser violence, yes, Burma Committee, you can connect it. So women who are experiencing lesser violence, which is marital rape, but we can say breaking of bones has not occurred, or something like that has not occurred, then their issue will not get addressed. So that will be injustice. Hence, articulating a law which is able to incorporate all categories, which is able to safeguard all categories, and yet not let men get abused by such a law, men not get mauled by such a law, whereby they have not been involved in such an act and yet they get victimized by it, also needs to be taken care of, because a law needs to be foolproof, like covering all the patterns of, we can say, security and well-being of all communities. So also sometimes questions have been raised in the past related to efficacy of male judges. So like in this situation, what had happened was the famous ke jagah in hona chahiye. So infamous Mathura rape case where there was a 14-year-old girl who was raped in custody, and the term that the Supreme Court then had used was rape by consent. What is this rape by consent? Again, we can see feminist scholars, they also argue every once in a while that sometimes the understanding related to the term sexual assault is also not very clear to people when they are talking about it or exercising it on. Simultaneously, you can reflect upon this given component associated with abuse and faulty interpretation by law. There have been so many ways whereby the perpetrators have been themselves the so-called, we can say, keepers of law. For example, you must be aware of the previous CJI, Mr. Gogoi, who was later rewarded yet another position by the government. He was into regular abuse of young intern girls who used to go to him for any kind of, or was working around him for under any internship. So he was Ranjan Gogoi, was constantly being like, we can say, mm, hyphenated, getting into any such act. So that's also there when we talk about it. Furthermore, you can see that so that's also another problem. There was a case that had come in UP whereby a woman, she went to the police station because she was running away from certain men who were chasing her to rape her. And the policeman, the SHO, he got hold of her and he ended up raping her. Another case was there whereby a woman was in custody and the policeman was masturbating, seeing her, and that was thankfully recorded on camera. And then he was suspended. Later, he was stripped of the services. So those problems also, every once in a while, you get to hear, and that can also be a disturbing fact. Yeah, he heard his own case. So Ranjan Gogoi. So every once in a while, when you get to learn these kind of facts, it actually shakes your conscience and it makes you question whether what is being realized on ground, it is up to mark or not, and whatever we are realizing, is it like well addressed. So we can see caste-based conflicts. I have already discussed this, that every once in a while, stripping of women, violating women, humiliating them. So we saw that in ethnic violence as well, right? So when we are talking about political violence, we can see in ethnic violence, caste violence, all these possibility of stripping, raping, humiliating women is a very common practice. Recently, like last year, all of you could see that happening in Manipur, and that was very disturbing. So again, we can see the various levels of protests that have occurred in different parts of, like we can say, India. In Jammu and Kashmir, repetitive violence exercised towards women is known to all of you. These problems are increasing, especially while seeking help from police. Yes, 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 that's also there. So when we are talking about this violence unfold on ground, we can also connect it with, I would say, you know, the way it starts unfolding with respect to the dynamics that is prevailing around us. So, for example, when we are talking about these dynamics, every once in a while we can see this occur on ground for all of us, whereby the woman is treated as a chattel, or she is like sometimes treated as a messenger of uh, the nature or intensity of abuse that can be exercised towards a larger community. And that symbolism is exercised upon the woman, which also triggers that pattern of violence. So you can think of that. Kunan Poshpora is a village in JNK. And Kunan Poshpora, there's a very infamous incident that happened in 1997, whereby the entire village was being raped. All women in the village, irrespective of the age, it was like all the women were raped, and the case is still pending, and there are a lot of conspiracy theories around it. But the other aligning nearby villages, they stopped getting their sons married to the women of Kunan Poshpura. So if you read about Kunan Poshpura, you'll be quite surprised to know. And there can be a lot of parallel facts also, which nowadays people might be putting it up. And that happened. Some people say it was army, some say it was paramilitary, but entire night the women were raped. And the next day there were a lot of deaths that happened, a lot of women who were hospitalized. Um, After women getting hospitalized, a lot of them underwent some permanent surgery whereby uterus had to be removed. So a lot happened. So that's how you can connect. Very disturbing facts indeed. So you can see that there can be various forms or patterns of violence that can unfold around us. So there are different types of laws related to women. You can put the list. You can find the list at multiple places. You can find it in National Policy for Women, National Policy for Women 2016. There is a specific dedication to a subcomponent pertaining to violence against women. And you can also find a given insight associated with the same, whereby you can also read or get to read the पॉश एक्ट को भी आप डाल सकते हैं, ठीक है। तो इसमें just a second, I'll give you what I was talking about. So national, and here and I'm just sharing it with all of you. So here it is. In this, when you see the index, you can see there is this specific dedication to violence against women, page number 1213. When you move to that, so you can see this is economy. Yeah, just after this. Yeah, this. So you can see under the component of violence against women in this specific report pertaining to women, I think all of you can see that. So they are trying to address a lot of components. So whether it is termination of pregnancy or it is denial of education or it is child marriage, they have like enlisted all forms of violence, right? So related to life cycle of a girl and different ages, different stages, different levels of violence. So from fetus to elderly, you can see that there is this reflection by the government of India itself, life cycle approach in a continuum from fetus to elderly. It starts from selective termination of pregnancy, denial of education, child marriage, violence at home, public spaces, work, old age level, we can say denial of basic rights and segments. Again, you can see this PCPNDT Act, then trafficking of women, then you can see persons of disabilities, they suffer from a different level of violence. Then we can see Nari Adalat, they are talking about establishing them for speedy trial for heinous crimes so that faith in justice is maintained. And along with that, we can see efforts made to increase representation of women in judicial positions. Then we can see that there is this component related to district level service agencies. And in that, we all can see that there is this National Commission for Women and Ministry of Women and Child Development that can be put here. So NLSA and then DLSA and all that. So you just reflect upon that. Then you will also talk about different types of data sources. The data sources which gives you a comprehensive understanding about where violence is high. Because when you know where violence is high, you can really talk about the kind of intervention which you can cause for women, right? So that's also something which all of us can connect with. Again, we can see gender specific training and gender sensitivity can be encouraged to keep that violence under check. All right. Furthermore, when we talk about it and when we get back to this, that's why I said National Policy for Women 2016. So I have tried to enlist a lot of laws. Along with that laws, you need to go through that. इसमें और क्या ऐड करोगे आप लोग? तो इसमें आप लोग इसमें आप और ऐड कर लेना पॉश को, ठीक है? पॉश एक्ट को प्लीज ऐड कर लेना. Any law which is in news related to women, please add it. Like recently, there was right to privacy which was extended to like men and women. So right to privacy, recent judgment, put that also in action. All right. After this, when we move ahead with respect to this component, so I have also given you how internal complaints committee needs to be created. And this is something which we all can see has been related to workplace when we are talking about workplace harassment that can be there. And then there is the aggrieved woman who can file a complaint within 90 days and she can get it addressed. Then you have the indecent representation of women prevention act, and you can connect with the amendment also. And after this, when we talk about it, immoral trafficking prevention act, PETA, and then you have all India suppression of immoral trafficking, that is CETA. And after that, you can further move ahead and you can see the details related to PETA and CETA has been discussed over here with respect to prostitution and brothel running and how these women need to be rescued, what efforts need to be made related to these women. So I've given it quite in detail. Again, Domestic Prohibition Act, that is 61, amended in 86, so that the abuse can be kept under check. Then you have Domestic Violence Act, that was like you can see passed in 2005, amended in 2006. Further, and then what are the key provisions? Why you should memorize them? They can always ask you. Okay, and suppose in paper 4, if there's a question that there is this woman who has been victim to violence related to this, under this condition, how will you add to the answer? So when you know the laws, even the case study can be solved in a better manner. That's why I'll encourage all of you that please memorize it well. Again, with respect to this, what are the methods to empower the girl child or methods to empower the women when we talk about it? So just think about the levels at which she is disempowered, and then you'll know where to empower. So empower the girls to protect themselves along with hands-on engagement with men. So let them socialize with boys. And at the same time, they should also learn how to protect themselves. So that the idea is shifting towards like making their attitude shift from the idea of how power is exercised and how violence is exercised. So rather than being in a subservient position, socialize them, shift their tendencies and attitudes, and work towards the possibility of letting them cope up with the ideas of violence and power. Then break the silence, tell them that they have to raise an alarm, they have to speak against the pattern of violence that's happening. They don't need to be in subservient position, or don't need to bear with it. They should be aware of the laws, and they should be like amongst women, we should build solidarity with family, with self-help groups, with civil society at different levels. When there is solidarity, and mind it, it's not only women related solidarity, men, women, all. Because when there is a consolidated solidarity coming from the society, that has a greater impact. Furthermore, we can connect it with women's rights groups. We need to connect with women's rights groups as well, so that a proper training and awareness campaign is created. Simultaneously, we can see we also need to understand that women should be made to understand their rights and protest for it. Okay. So, protesting for their own rights. Again, organizing community or public projects to confront all forms of harassment, eve teasing, flirting, all that. So sometimes you will be like, there's this blank voice art project that was created. So for example, not for example, typing error I do. So for example, all right. Then I have given you some additional information for self-reading pertaining to violence against women. And this was an article which I had picked up from one of the sources, so that you are able to reflect upon violence against women with respect to ownership, property ownership and stuff. So this is something which I have given to all of you with respect to a lot of thinkers, reflections coming from a lot of thinkers, which has been consolidated here. Because when you're writing your answer, you have to keep it loaded with laws, with, we can say, reflections coming from thinkers. So this is the given dimension. You can keep adding to your notes and to your content. So a lot of thinkers you'll be finding mentioned here pertaining to like violence. And here I have tried to this the research paper that I have pasted in your notes as an additional information. So the objective of this study, you can see, is to examine the relationship between women's ownership of land and related productive assets, and what? A reduction in gender-based violence. And this, I feel, is very relevant in today's times. If someone says that how right to property can address reduction in violence towards women. So when you're studying that how right to property can diminish violence, can reduce violence, here is the material to reflect upon it, that how right to property is addressing the concern. Okay, empowering the women accordingly. All right. So I have given a lot of research work uh, related to like patterns of violence, and then after discussing the patterns of violence, how ownership of the property also impacts the status of women. So you can just go through it, and every once in a while there are insights related to this given pattern related to violence against women, which is published. Keep updating the material. This is what I'll say. So this is additional material. Just go through it, read it. If you get stuck in any sentence, component, study, research work, just let me know. I will keep explaining that to all of you. The way I said that, please go through the component of ethnic violence, caste violence, because we have taught these chapters, but those subtopics are recalled again in this chapter of social transformation. So go through sustainability, environmental problems, movements, the component of caste, religious, and ethnic violence, and all the given material which is here. Carry it forward to the respective chapters, attach the information to those respective chapters, and let me know if you are getting stuck in any given area or position. So this extra reading, which all of you can see, is related to the norms. So you can see the social norms related to agricultural land have generally defined land ownership as a male domain. Women, it is considered unwomanly or unwelcoming act when power and hierarchy goes to women. So all the very, very exhaustive dimension related to ownership, patriarchy, violence against women. And you will get a lot of thinkers like Krishnan and Iswaran and Malhotra and Sylvia Walby, some Veena Das. These are some of the most well-known thinkers, and how they are articulating and they are discussing about the issue of violence. It's a must read for all. Please do it. Okay, please do so. So this, from here onwards, you'll be finding here onwards. This is like on page 50. So subordination of women and discrimination through patriarchy. Here onwards, you'll be finding that it's not only related to property ownership and violence. Here onwards, the mood and mizaz of the notes changes. Okay, means the concern and the demand of the discussion changes. It's no more related to ownership. Okay, so here onwards, you'll be finding reflections in general related to violence. Okay, so just go through it. You'll get a lot of names of thinkers. Memorize the names from Shula Smith Firestone to Radhika Chopra, Veena Das, everyone like Sylvia Walby. You have to quote their names effortlessly. Okay, you can quote these names in not GS, in essay also. In GS, you can carry points, but not the thinkers' names. And you can quote these names in sociology, like it's essential. It's a must for all of you to do that. Okay, so go through this given material. It's couple of pages, not so much. Okay, so it's just couple of pages, and just after going through all this given dimension, uh, just find out if you are getting stuck in any fact and get back to me. All right, so this is it for today. We'll start with poverty and deprivation tomorrow and complete the chapter of social transformation tomorrow. Any doubts related to caste, ethnic, religious, environmental issue which is there in this chapter, read it, get back to me. ठीक है, मैं randomly पूछ दूंगी कॉर्नुकोपिया वर्ल्ड ऑफ लिमिट्स क्या है, और आप ऐसे लॉस्ट नहीं होने चाहिए हैं ये क्या बोल दिया मैम ने, क्योंकि दिया है मैंने फर्स्ट डे दिखाया भी था. So please go through it. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day.